Welcome to this Hotel Marketing Association video covering the most frequently asked questions regarding entering our Hotel Marketing Awards. I'm Pamela Carvell, I'm Life President of the HMA, and I'm joined on this video by Martin Evans of the tourism business, who is a fellow committee member of the HMA. Welcome, Martin.
Hi, Pamela.
We've both been involved in the judging process of the awards for quite a few years now, and therefore we thought it would be useful to create and share this video that covers the questions that we most frequently get asked in the build-up to the entry deadline. So, Martin, if we could start with a fairly common question, which is how long should an award submission be?
Well, there's no right or wrong. The form itself probably could be done completed in 3 or 4 pages. Some of the information you'll have anyway to hand. Other parts of it you might have to do a bit of digging around the office. But there's no need to send a 10 or 20 page document through. There are opportunities for attachments, for downloads, examples of marketing campaigns. But essentially it's 3 or 4 pages of A4.
Okay. Yes, I mean, many years ago, as you and I recall, entries used to be extensive and used to be accompanied by very large packages of creative materials. Nowadays, yes, it's providers with the basic, the key information, and then the links to where the judges can find the necessary creative materials and all the backup and so on. So next question, Martin, which increasingly I get asked, which is, can I use the same entry submission for multiple categories?
Certainly, yes. I think this year we've managed to pivot the categories to reflect last year's unfortunate circumstances when many of the hotels were more involved in community engagement than perhaps marketing to customers. But certainly there will be opportunities for the same entry or a slightly distilled version to be put forward for more than one category.
Okay. Yes, I mean, that does happen when companies or hotels realise that something that's, say, best partnership may also, as you say, be best engagement with the local community. So yes, there can be an overlap. Sometimes you need to just tweak that entry submission a little so that the judges don't think, wait a minute, is this wording really correct for this category? So yeah, sometimes a little tweak, but sometimes, yes, just you can enter the same campaign in several categories. Now, your opinion, Martin, do you think that hotels with bigger budgets stand a better chance of winning? Because as you know, sometimes, it can be a campaign with a £500 budget, and then it can be being judged against a campaign with a £50,000 budget. So,
yes, you're quite right. And we've had both, haven't we, in the past years? I think what's important is to go through the form, looking at the objectives that you had at the beginning of your campaign. If you've achieved those objectives but only spent £1,000, no problem. It's about the return on the investment matching your objectives, really, and not about big budgets.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, the ROI is so critical, isn't it? As you and I know, that the judges, is one of the first things they go straight to is, wait a minute, what was the ROI on this? And we have had cases, I remember, where we've had, a very expensive 5-star hotel enter a campaign that they spent £500 on. They were very proud of the fact that they'd just spent £500 on photography and the rest was down to social media. So yeah, it isn't always the case, is it, that it's the big hotel with the big budget? It's sometimes the other way around. But I think
I remember well when we had the best brochure category, and an independent hotel in the Lake District beat the Waldorf Hilton, and I think the Hilton had probably spent 5 times as much on the brochure. Of course, we don't have that category anymore, but it just goes to show that it can be, the underdog can win through so long as the objectives are clear and the return matches the objectives.
Yeah, well said. And another question that crops up every year is, do campaigns have to be from 2020? Because obviously we're well into 2021 now.
Yes, they do. It's an annual awards, isn't it, Pamela, and is established as such. So we're looking for campaigns or activity that took place during the calendar year.
Okay. And in terms of how do you believe entrants can make their entry stand out?
We've seen some really standout entries. What would be the factors common to all? I think really good objectives, good good summary of target markets, and obviously, as I've said, the results matching the objectives. But I think the one word that really comes to mind, Pamela, is creativity. Some of the best winners through the years have undoubtedly been the most creative campaigns.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I think certainly when the entries sort of hit the inboxes of the judges, for an entry to stand out, it needs to be easy to read and easy to follow, because yes, we recruit judges who are experts, experienced in our industry and in marketing, but they may have never heard anything of your campaign. It depends what type of campaign it is. And so to me, yes, being easy to read, easy to follow, a great creative idea, great results, as we've both said several times, and something that's innovative and that you can almost sense the pride that that hotel has in what they've done and what they've achieved and what they've produced. Because that sometimes comes over, doesn't it, Martin, that you can tell that the hotel's very proud of that entry and the campaign that they've created.
Yeah, and they match it to the target markets, don't they? They're quite specific about the markets they were going for. It's not the world. It's not even all adults. It's specific markets, and I think those are the best awards, that award entries.
Yeah, I mean, it just reminded me, we used to, in years gone by, we would get target market everybody, wouldn't we? And you'd think, wait a minute, no, you're a small 5-star hotel in rural Yorkshire. How can the target market be everybody? You know, I mean, it's but
absolutely,
we don't tend to get that anymore. Now, in terms of, will the entrants get feedback on their entries?
No, we don't do feedback. Obviously, we're not aware yet just how many entries could come in, and hopefully it'll be a bundle and we just wouldn't be able to give feedback. And also, even then, sometimes the feedback can be a little subjective, and I think that it is best that we look at the entries on their merits, judge them on their merits, and those winners and highly commended entries obviously do have a paragraph or two of what the judges felt distinguished them. But as for the majority of the entries, there isn't personal feedback.
Yeah, I mean, the judges spend a lot of their time, don't they, going through the entries. And it's not just the entries, as we said earlier, there's so many links in an entry nowadays of all the materials that you need to go through, and looking at their Instagram account to see what happened and checking the website and so on, that, you know, judges do dedicate potentially hours to every single entry. And therefore we do need to focus on what they thought of the shortlist and the winning entries. We can't, in addition, expect them to then give feedback on all the other entries, as you say, especially if an entry, a category is very heavily subscribed. I mean, that would be almost impossible, although frustrating. I mean, I've sometimes said to entrants, the best feedback you can get is see which campaign won and listen to why that won, and perhaps learn from why the winning entry won. And then you can do the best comparison of how you think it stacks up against your entry. But
yes, and that's exactly why we do showcase winning entries, whether it's at a HMA evening seminar or at the National Hotel Marketing Conference. These are best practice and should be showcased.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, because best practice is the biggest single reason why these awards started and why they've continued for so many years. Is we as a professional body are looking to endorse best marketing practice. And I think, just before I move on to the next question, that's why in some years we haven't given an award in a category, because we feel very strongly, and we brief the judges, that this needs to stand up as best practice of that type of marketing, not just be the best of the bunch of entrants that we've received. And so sometimes the judges can be quite ruthless in terms of, no, if this really doesn't reflect best practice, then we as the HMA don't want to put our name to it as an award-winning campaign.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, in terms of what do winning entries have in common? Your thoughts on that, Martin?
Well, as I've mentioned, creativity is important, but marketing's an art and a science. And I think quantifiable objectives, a recognition that the target markets have to be satisfied and reached. Good flowing English language is useful, where we can actually see the thought process that went into the campaign. And you know, one or two maybe customer testimonials. Certainly some of the best campaign entries in meetings and events or wedding marketing, for example, in the past have had customer testimonials.
Yeah, okay. I mean, yes, I'd like to endorse that SMART objectives. You know, that's the most one of the most basic things in marketing, isn't it, is what are your SMART objectives? You know, again, we used to get entries that would say to increase brand awareness. Well, that's not a SMART objective, you know, because many hotels don't measure it. And therefore, even if you quantify it, how can you actually measure it? So we are looking for those tangible SMART objectives, the comprehensive information, as you say, you know, creative materials, which typically nowadays are in links to see those. I also think that it's important that you leave the judges, when they've read your entry, thinking, you know, wow, how original, how clever, how creative, you know, how on earth did they manage to pull all that together? And what amazing results in ROI. You know, that's the impact, isn't it? When you and I've been involved in judging, when the judges say, wow, this entry is just mind-blowing. How have they done this?
And there are always many of those, and it's just so heartwarming because, you know, marketing, the principles don't change, but these are new campaigns every year and some really creative ones.
Yeah. So finally, in terms of what mistakes should entrants avoid, your thoughts on that, Martin?
Well, I think it's turning it in, you know, from the strengths and the things that they should include. Poorly written, lack of objectives, lack of target markets being defined. I think that sometimes there's almost a thought within the writing of the campaign that the judges know the hotel or the hotel group, whereas we don't. We need to be seeing it for the first time almost, without any preconceived ideas. But you know, more often than not, people get what they need to do right, rather than what they don't do as well as they could.
Yeah, I endorse that. I mean, some entries are just simply too short and therefore don't give enough information. Some don't include enough links to support the entry. You know, if you've said it produced amazing results on your Instagram account, you need to either do screen grabs of that or link us through to that. And I think two biggies from my perspective is that sometimes entrants don't seem to have read the criteria for that particular category. And there's two things the judges look at first when I email through this pile of entries to them. First, they look at what are the criteria to have submitted an entry in that category. And that's the first thing they tick off against is, wait a minute, does this campaign match those criteria? And the second thing is, there is a very good reason why we say, here's what the judges are looking for. Well, guess what? That's one of the first things the judges look at is, what are we meant to be looking for as judges? So again, if some campaigns, some entries, you know, if they don't tick all of those, then the judges are likely to put them to the bottom of the pile and therefore focus their discussion and their time on the entries that have.
Yes.
So as you say, it's not rocket science, is it? You know, you've got to have specific objectives. You've got to have a great target market. You've got to have an ROI, the basics of marketing.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good discipline. You know, people have said to me when they've done this, well, I'm glad I went through that process. I can send it to my boss. I can give it to my team. It's a really useful process, not just in itself as an award entry.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Martin. So just to confirm the process to everybody watching the video, we do acknowledge all entries. We have a specific email address to submit entries this year, which is awards@hotelmarketingassociation.com. And you will get an acknowledgement within about 48 hours of your entry. So if for any reason you don't get that acknowledgement, please follow up with us, because you know we all know that emails do go astray. I obviously then personally check all the links in all of the entries. So be mindful that sometimes links, you know, perhaps are only valid for 14 days and the judging may not take place within 14 days of you getting the entry to me. So be, again, ready to get perhaps emails from me saying, right, I'm going to need new links to access those on the day of the judging. We do advise everybody who has been shortlisted for each category, which is typically 3 entries per shortlist. You will get correspondence. Again, we typically email, but obviously if you've given us a mobile number on the entry as well, we can call as well. Once we've done that, we email people who've been unsuccessful out of courtesy so that you know you haven't been shortlisted. And the good news is that the winners genuinely don't know they've won until the award winners event. And we've always prided ourselves on that, because the excitement and the buzz on the evening is very special, isn't it, Martin? That people genuinely didn't know. When people are jumping up and down and squealing, it's 100% genuine, and we go to great lengths to keep that secret until the particular event. So I'd like to thank Martin for taking time to join me on this. I hope that if anybody's thinking of entering the awards, this has just answered those last few questions. If you still have any burning questions, please email me on awards@hotelmarketing.com, because those I personally pick up that email address. And obviously we look forward to receiving some amazing entries this year. Thanks, Martin.
Good luck. Yeah, good luck, everyone.